StoneCo stock has had a strong recovery so far this year. What's behind it? And also, this is just the beginning, by the way, because according to management, there's a lot of shareholder value to be created. I'm paraphrasing a quote here. All right, we see up 65% this year. And if we listen in on the earnings call here, we could see, for example, Lia, Strategy and Marketing Officer, talked a lot about the total payment volume, but that was, the majority of the earnings call. But we also got some comments regarding the buyback program that got lost a bit in the mix, according to myself. It was 20 minutes of prepared remarks and then about 40 minutes of questions from analysts. And most of the questions was about total payment volume, TPV. That acronym was repeated over and over again in the earnings call. I will just comment briefly on it before I go into some of the bullish triggers actually, because if we look at the company here, StoneCo, we can see in the cash flow statement that operating cash flow for the latest quarter was positive, a bit more than 600 million in this case. Investing cash flow positive, and then financing cash flow negative. They took on 1.5 billion in debt and repaid 1.2 billion, so slightly increasing the amount of debt, but they also repurchased shares at 843 million. And this is leading up to something in this case. Free cash flow 330 million. What about this share repurchase program? In the earnings call, it was commented on as a way to provide value to shareholders, to bring back some value in this case. Yes, indeed, we see the increase in share price. But about 1/3 of the share purchase program had been executed, and we still have a very large 2 billion reais repurchase going on here in the near future. That's a good way to bring back value to the stock, and if you followed it for some time, then this is not something new. This is shares outstanding in millions of shares. You can see it here quarterly on the little diagram to the right, and annually on the little diagram to the left. So in the major growth phase, we could see some share dilution, issuing more shares to create equity, and also, of course, executive compensation. Also, some M&A activity. There was some M&A activity with regards to a possible sale in this case, but I think that's a distraction. I will not comment on it as it's very uncertain. But we can see here that shares outstanding is reducing quarter over quarter quite rapidly. If we scroll up a bit, we can see year-over-year quarterly growth here in this case. And then we can see that for quite a few quarters in a row, we have had a steep decline in the amount of shares outstanding. So in terms of earnings attributable to per share, we can see that, all right, a good amount of earnings and a declining share amount. Yes, indeed, it's coming together nicely in this case for StoneCo. I think it's quite a prudent move also to focus on profitability rather than to focus on market expansion, given the macroeconomic environment that Brazil is facing. So I think that management is handling this excellently from a strategy perspective. Very, very surprising in this case. And if we indeed look at the market, we could see that, all right, there is some cannibalization going on, meaning that the PIX transactions is taking up space from debit card transaction. But it's also very important to remember that these PIX transactions, new launch, is also cannibalizing on cash transactions. And what's the long-term bet with a stock like StoneCo? Well, the long-term bet is that Brazil will be a less and less cash-based economy in terms of payments and move more towards more modern financial types of transactions, such as, for example, PIX transactions, which are prevalent there, and also, of course, debit, which they call credit cards, debit cards basically over there. It's a bit confusing, but debit card transactions as well. And just moving away from that cash-based economy. So we can see here major buybacks of shares. And if we are to believe management in this case, then this is only the beginning. We will see larger buybacks in the future. So as a shareholder, I'm very happy with this strategy. They still have my vote of confidence. Although if we take a look at this company over the midterm here, I've been a holder for the midterm, we can see that it's gone sideways for many years, basically, going very slow from the introduction. And then, of course, there was a surge due to some restrictions here in the COVID years. You shouldn't be face to face and you should have your distance, and of course this accelerated to some extent. But then we also saw some very bad macroeconomic headwinds, and we saw some troubles in the credit department that they were able to ride out the storm on. But they have traded sideways a lot here. Not really performing as well as the rest of the market, but perhaps now the time has come for StoneCo to finally deliver more value to shareholders. The buybacks have been propping up share price, yes indeed. It can bring share price even higher, but also a switch in sentiment would be extremely beneficial to shareholders. Some more bullish belief from investors in emerging markets. This tends to come in cycles. Sometimes it's in and trendy to look at, and other times people get very risk averse, especially when bond yields are higher. Then these higher risks need to compensate more, basically, to be worth it for investors. But StoneCo here, reducing the amounts of shares, having this profitability here for the quarter, focusing on profitability. They can't do buybacks forever as share price continues to go lower and lower, and eventually this will be a dividend stock. They will pay out dividend. I like to call them the oversized dividends of South America, as that's a common way to get out value from South America as shareholders. Just look at Petrobras, for example. That's one example. And that would be one way to compensate us as investors for the massive risk that we are taking by investing in such an unstable region. Alright, that's been it for this video, covering StoneCo, the share buyback program, and more to come in that region. As always, hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.